Jon Shaw, Herr Professor, as we would say in Germany. I am very happy that this is possible again to have a talk to you on railway issues in Great Britain. This is one of the transport system is one of your occupations in your scientific work, I understand. And of course, in the meantime, we had dramatic developments in Great Britain's railway system. It's worth to make a new summary of the actual situation, especially because some days ago you had parliamentary elections in Great Britain, and there was a political change from Tories to Labour Party. Now there is an old saying that new brooms clean well, or so. Yes. Sweep clean, this is probably, but the old brooms know the corners. And now I am not quite sure, of course, whether Labour Party might be described as a new broom, as it is also a party full of traditions and pros and cons, but still it is a new broom in this dimension, but they also should know the old corners. And now my question is it already visible that there will be another treatment of railway issues within the new government? Because the last time I think you were not especially happy with what happened in the railway business.
That's right. I wasn't. And it's interesting because we've got, as you say, a new broom, new Labour Party, and they opened the Parliament today with the King's Speech, which is where the government sets out the legislation it's going to do in the next year. And there are three railway bills actually that they're going to do. The first one is called the Passenger Railway Services Bill, and this will bring the privatized train operating companies into public ownership. So it will nationalize the train operating companies. So companies like Great Western and Southern and Thameslink, and these companies will be brought into, or in some cases remain in public ownership. So that's the first thing. And the way they do that is they wait until their current franchise contracts end and they don't renew them. So it won't cost anything. They won't be buying any companies, but they just wait until the contracts end and they bring them back into public ownership. Then there's a separate bill that will become an act of Parliament, and that's the Railways Bill. And this will create a new organisation called GBR, Great British Railways. And that organisation will oversee the running of the railways. So it will be responsible for all the track, like Network Rail is now, but also the operating of the passenger rail services. So it will bring in the timetabling and the level of services and that kind of thing will be done by this new organisation, Great British Railways. So after years of everything being separated, the idea is that this now comes back together again. So the Great British Railways will be the overseeing body that will look after the tracks and the stations and everything, and also will specify the train operations.
Will they incorporate as well the infrastructure, so that this is also means that the nowadays existing company that all the time still was having lack of finances will come into this new great organization?
Yes, so it'll be similar to the previous British Rail, before privatization. It'll be similar but not quite the same, but the idea is you have one organization which is responsible for the running the railways, the investment in the railways, the planning of the railways, the operation of the railways. So that's the big change, if you like, that Labour will bring about. The real difference will be that there's one organisation which is integrating all of the railway operations, and that's the big difference. Because of you can have one organisation integrating everything, you can get rid of a lot of the contracts that are now within the industry. So, let's say if Avanti Trains runs a late train and that delays other companies' trains, and you've got legal teams working out who has to pay compensation to who and all of this kind of thing.
So this is a Black Friday for armies of attorneys.
Yes, that's right. So the idea is we remove the armies of attorneys from the system. So that's the big change, and the real benefit will be integration and hopefully reduce costs as a result.
This is a big revolution, and then probably seems to be the only way to settle it. This was already discussed about I think 2 years ago, but all the time there was the next. You had quite a number of prime ministers, but they obviously were not able to do what should have been done. So this hopefully will happen now. You said a third bill. What would it deal with?
The third bill deals with the powers to build new railway infrastructure in the north of England. So it follows on from HS2, of course, some of which was scrapped, this new bill, this third bill, brings in powers to build some high-speed and upgraded infrastructure in the north of England on the route between Liverpool and York, basically. So there's changes in the structure of the main railway industry, and also the way the British system works. They need parliamentary approval or legislation to build large-scale infrastructure projects. So that's all going ahead. So whereas the previous government said, as you said, they were going to bring in this legislation to allow Great British Railways to be formed, they didn't do it. Labour Party now has done it. They're also going to nationalise the train operating companies when they reach the end of their franchises. And now they've passed legislation to build this new infrastructure in the north of England. There's one small aspect of privatised railway which will remain, though. In fact, there are two. On the passenger side, we have these very small companies called open access operators. So there's Hull Trains, Grand Central, Heathrow Express, and these will still be able to run because they're currently privately owned. They're not franchised, so they'll still be able to run. Freight. Yeah, they do. But there is a debate about whether or not they pay enough to access the track. But they have done a good job. I mean, Lumo is another open access operator, runs between London and Edinburgh, and they've been very, very successful as well. In part by bringing new business to rail, because they've taken it away from air, which is good. And the other big area that will remain in private ownership is freight. So freight services will remain privately run.
Yes, this was a big problem, I understand, occurring more and more over the last month when it became clear that the why will not be done, for example, and there was a mess that obviously it might happen that there is freight coming back to roads that are overloaded anyhow, and you don't have drivers for the lorries anymore because unfortunately all foreigners from the EU had to leave the country. So this is a mess as well. So is there a chance that the railway system will take more freight, or at least the same amounts of what we have now?
Well, I mean, we obviously want to make it the case that rail takes as much freight as possible. So we are hoping, I'm not aware of any announcement yet, but we're hoping that some of the HS2 scheme that was scrapped will be brought back. It may be brought back in a different way, perhaps a bit slower, but at the moment, what they're planning to build is useless, and it's going to cost a lot of money to build a useless railway. So they're going to have to do something to take it all the way into central London, and at least to take it a little bit further up the West Coast main line, in order to release the capacity, which is where we'll get the real freight gains, and regional rail gains as well. I haven't heard of any announcement on that yet. But I'll let you know as soon as I do.
And so there is a chance that this why, the bifurcation, so to say, the two directions of the high speed, there might be a chance to have at least a part of it, because for me this was shocking that at the beginning this was one of the main declarations of Mr. Johnson, for example, that don't worry about Brexit, we are creating billions of investments now in the railway, and there will be plenty of companies coming into the country to invest in this, and then they're cutting more of the half of it, and this, I mean, that was not a reliable politics, probably.
No, it wasn't reliable politics. No, it was awful. Well, you and I have spoken about Brexit before, and you know how I think that was a dreadful development. But the previous government was not particularly reliable, and a lot. So the announcements of this large-scale investment in HS2, and only to see it cancelled was very, very disappointing. I don't think the why will come back again, but it's possible that some of the bit that was cancelled to Manchester and into central London, it's possible that might come back in a different and cheaper form. Because I mean, the railway will be built at what, 375 kilometers an hour, something like that, isn't it? It's ridiculously quick. It doesn't need to be that quick, and it could be, if you build traditional high speed rail at 300 k's. It's cheaper to build. Companies know how to build it. It could be. In one sense, cancelling it and then reintroducing it more cheaply, that would be fine. But at the moment, we have uncertainty.
Yes, I also saw uncertainty about the future of one of the railway premises that has great traditions, Derby. I mean, Alstom even was declaring that they might have to close the company because there would be. Despite the declarations, there would be no orders until 26, and now it seems this has been rescued by giving some 10 trains for the Elizabeth line, but this also doesn't seem to fit all together. I mean, to damage one of the largest points of British railway industry history is not the best idea. I mean, what you lose, you will not get back afterwards so soon.
Yeah, that's right. The real problem with Derby is it's the UK's only facility that can go all the way through from design to construction. And if we lost that, quite apart from the history, we would lose the future as well, because so I mean we've got now a lot of train assembly. Well, we've got a number of train assembly plants in Britain. Obviously, the Newton Aycliffe, which is Hitachi. We've got in South Wales the CAF one as well. We've got Siemens in the Hull area for the underground, the London Underground stock. And there's another one. I mean, if the Bakerloo line replacement trains order is not made very soon, then the Bakerloo line is going to be in real trouble in 4 or 5 years' time, because the trains already are 50 years old, and they'll be falling apart. But so yeah, you're absolutely right. There's those 10 trains that Transport for London ordered are keeping Derby open just at the moment. But then we've got quite a lot of new train orders that will come through in the next year or two. So there's obviously the trains for HS2. That's Alstom and Hitachi. But then we've got there'll be a big order for Southeastern. There'll be a big order for Northern. There'll be more trains for ScotRail. There'll be a big order for Great Western Railway. Great Western needs to replace all of its regional fleet. So there will be orders coming through. It's just that they're not yet quite there. And then there's the Bakerloo line as well. So there will be orders coming. But it's classic. It's classic the way that the previous government was quite happy to have this, let the market determine it.
Yeah, but somebody still has to give the finances, and it is well known that it's impossible to run trains just from the ticket fees. I mean, the last years I saw official statistics telling that the ticket fees were, I think, the most expanded ones for the whole of Europe, and still the service, if you see what was happening to the infrastructure, was less than average. So that is not the way. There has to be someone who decides and delivers, and then it might improve. Is this possible to find more finances, or to give them to expand them in a more logical way?
I think that's exactly the answer, to spend it in a more logical way. So as is now, I think, quite famous, this country doesn't have any money.
Well, but, no one has.
Yeah, well, true. But what we do have, though, is a railway system that costs more to run than it should do. So one of the ideas of the creation of GBR is to, as you say, to get rid of the armies of attorneys, to be able to use some of the money which is currently spent on the railway more sensibly, more efficiently, and in that way spend more money on actual rail services. I don't know if it's well known outside of the UK, but when COVID hit, then the government basically cancelled all the franchises and just ran the railways on a management contract, and they gave the train operators subsidy in order to keep going. But since lockdown has finished, they have kept a very, very, ridiculous funding arrangement in place, which is really, really problematic. So rather than run the companies under a single profit and loss account, the Department for Transport pays money to the train operators, and then the train operators pay money directly to the Treasury. So with the money that comes in through fares and all of this kind of stuff goes to the Treasury, but the subsidies go from the Department for Transport. So there's no unified profit and loss account. So a really good example, I know it's ludicrous. So a really good example is now, after lockdowns, the busiest days are Friday, Saturday, and we know that if we ran a Friday or a Saturday service on a Sunday, we would get that very, very busy as well. But there are certain contractual arrangements with drivers that the train companies need to resolve. And if you put more trains on a Sunday, obviously it costs you more to do that because you're putting more trains on. But guess what? You sell more tickets and you get more revenue. So we can't do it at the moment because the train companies say to the Department for Transport, right, we want to put on an extra 100 trains on a Sunday. And the Department for Transport says, well, you can't do that because it's going to cost us an extra £10 million. And the train operators say, yes, but we'll make 20 million in ticket revenue. Yeah. And the department says, yeah, but well, I don't care because we don't see any of that money. That goes straight to the Treasury. So it's completely ridiculous. So all of this should stop with GBR.
In the last years, we several times we faced the situation that because of financial losses, a franchise could not finish its task, and then a state-owned railway company already took over the job, so that this was for me. I mean, if they were talking about market arrangements, and then you have a bad bank or a bad rail, is the good rail, but this means it takes over the losses. This is almost very strange. What will happen to this parachute company in state hands? Will it be incorporated as well, or will it just terminate to run?
It will be incorporated in Great British Railways as well. So there are 4 companies at the moment that are run by the state. The parachute company is called the OLE, the Operator of Last Resort.
Yeah. I mean, this for me it was quite a religious meaning. The last, the last plea to heaven. So yeah. This was really. I mean, they have big humor, obviously, in the transport department to give such names.
Yeah, indeed, and it was all to do with the Railways Act of 1993. So the OLR, Operator of Last Resort, the Department for Transport is the operator of last resort in the event that a private company can't run it. So this is why the railway, the Passenger Railway Services Bill, it will amend supersede the 1993 Railways Act to mean that Great British Railways will become basically the operator of first resort, and it will be legal for permanently the state to run those railway companies. Whereas at the moment, under the current legislation, they're only supposed to be run as a measure of last resort by the Department for Transport until they can be reprivatized.
What excluded any positive development? It was just maintaining a minimum service, probably. Yeah?
Well, interestingly enough, the companies like LNER from London to Edinburgh, they're generally regarded as having been run very, very well as a national company. So, I mean, they've been able to. So, some of the managers who work for LNER have said that it's been easier to do things as a nationalised company than it was as a privatised company.
Oh, interesting. So, yeah. That is absolutely crazy. What the franchise takers will do now? I mean, they were entities that, well, they waiting for the next franchise and working. They have their workers as well. Will they all send their staff to the new established company?
Yeah. There's a particular legal provision that allows for when if one company takes over another company, all of the railway staff will just migrate across to that new company. So the same thing will happen when GBR takes over. There's something that's it's a very interesting question that you just asked there about the existing franchise owners, because at the moment there's a number of company groups that already own private sector franchises. So Trenitalia, First Group, what was Arriva. Now, if under the government's plans, that when the franchises end, they just go into public ownership, then no private owning group will lose any money, because they would be using their contract until they expected it to end, or until there was a break point in it, and then it would go to public ownership. There's a really interesting one, though, where Arriva, which was owned by Deutsche Bahn, has just been bought by a separate private company. And they bought Arriva in the full knowledge that this new legislation was about to come in. So they bought these train operating companies, and they're likely to lose them. So that is an interesting development there.
Interesting, yes. And what about the Rocco, the companies that were leasing the rolling stock? I mean, the system also doesn't seem to have been working always well. What will be their future?
They will stay exactly as they are. So the rolling stock companies are not at all impacted by the legislation. Well, they're not directly impacted by the legislation. The impact on them will be what decisions GBR takes about renewing its rolling stock, and with whom they will invest. So the original three rolling stock companies, Eversholt, Angel, Porterbrook, they were taken over by banks and things. But then, as other companies, as train companies have looked to renew their fleets, they've also used other companies to buy and finance the rolling stock. So there's more than three players now in the British rolling stock industry. So they won't be nationalised, and obviously, we want to grow the number of people that are using the trains, so there should be a good future for them. But the extent to which they invest in new rolling stock will be determined by the extent to which GBR wants to buy new rolling stock.
This means there will be no losses, and this is probably needed. What about the quality of the infrastructure? I mean, we had derailments several times on lines, even in the surroundings of London, where when I saw these photographs that showing that there still were timber sleepers in obviously a very, very worn out quality, so to say. I must say I was shocked. I didn't think that. I mean, I like timber sleepers, but not naturally on a line where you have freight trains and mixed trains each 2 minutes, and obviously this was not maintained even. Will there be a hope to get this done in a way that will not cause the next chaos, of course?
Yes. So the best example I can give you of that is the main line from London Paddington out towards Reading, which goes to South Wales and down to the southwest of England. The reliability and punctuality of that stretch of line between London and Reading has been quite bad since lockdown ended. And there's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is that the amount of traffic that's going over the line now is very much increased, partly because of the Elizabeth line, but also obviously as normal service has resumed on the trains. So They've had a number of technological challenges. There is between Heathrow Airport and London, there's kind of old overhead line equipment. There are problems with the axle counters. So the new axle counters are actually less reliable than the old ones for some reason. There are problems with the ballast as well. So what Network Rail have done is they've had to go and do a very significant piece of diagnostic work to look at what each problem is, what it contributes to the bad service, and how it can be fixed in the short and the long term. So they've now got a proper management plan, so they know what components are going wrong, how they can fix them, and by what point they will be fixed. And so that kind of thing, that if you like, total maintenance plan has come about in response to what's been regarded as very, very poor asset condition. And so, so the answer to the question is yes, they are absolutely addressing that, and they have a very, very robust way of doing it. But it's going to take 3 or 4 years before we'll see it fixed.
And so do you think that we might regain the technological knowledge? Because last time when we discussed this, you said that the knowledge, the working skills were getting lost because obviously no one was investing and so on. And now, some years ago, I had a meeting with some scouts from the Midlands, telling that now we are investing in science, and there will be plenty of railway scientists and engineers, and it will be improving. We will have our own skills again, so that it will be cheaper and more believable that we have our own people doing these jobs with the infrastructure. Is this really going on now to build up again a group of skilled engineers?
Well, one of the real problems that the railway is going to face in the next few years is the retirement of a lot of its skilled workforce. And so the industry is very well aware that it's going to need new drivers, for example. And the only way that you're going to be able to deliver large-scale infrastructure projects in a sequential way is by making sure you are planning for the future to get your workforce in place. So it is a well-known problem, and one that the company, that GBR will be putting in place a strategy to address. Yeah, I don't know the specifics about particular areas of Network Rail, but but it is well known that there will be a skills crisis if we don't do anything about it.
So my last question, perhaps to give a little bit of hope into the issue. I am a great fan of Agatha Christie, of course, and the Paddington steam train leaving punctually the station and passing punctually the place where the corpse has to be thrown out of the train. So would you say we might have the hope that the punctuality of British rail system within our lifetime might come again nearby the good of times of Agatha Christie?
Oh, I don't know. But one of the big differences then is there would have been far fewer trains on the system. And one of the big problems we've got at the moment with punctuality is that we have it's incredibly intensively used railway network. So and obviously there's, as we look to improve the quality of the infrastructure, that's one thing. But we also, one of the great advantages of GBR is that it will be able to take a whole view of the timetable. So rather than having 3 or 4 companies trying to run too many trains on a single bit of track, it will be able to take a strategic decision. We don't need 8 trains an hour here, each with 4 coaches. We need 4 trains an hour, each with 8 coaches. So, you know, the idea would be that having an integrated single organization, you can look to improve punctuality, not just by very expensive measures like heavy investment in infrastructure. I mean, obviously you do that where you can, but also by cheaper and sensible measures like running fewer but longer trains.
Because another hope might be that it would work according to another film, a German film. Ich denke oft an Piroschka. I'm often thinking about Piroschka, an Hungarian girl whose father was a station master. And the station master in this film has the beautiful statement telling to people waiting on the train that, see, it's exactly as I have told you, the train is delayed exactly half an hour, not a minute more. Hungarian definition of punctuality, but still reliable. So I think we should keep the hope that one of the 2 schemes might be possible in the future with all those improvements going on.
Yes.
So all the best for you and your work, and many thanks for this very instructive and interesting information. And so let's keep on the faith and come back to the issue within some time again. Many thanks, John, again.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.